Prime Minister Carney repeating this morning that he supports the attack on Iran, calling the regime oppressive, but also saying the attack is another example of how the international order has changed.
We stand with the Iranian people in their long and courageous struggle against the regime's oppressive rule, which is why we support efforts to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security. We are actively taking on the world as it is, not passively waiting for a world we wish to be.
That speech today in Australia sometimes echoed his headline address in Davos. Carney says while Canada does still back the initial American strikes on Iran, he wants all parties now to return to diplomacy. Catherine Cullen is traveling with the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister says it is about being realistic, that the initial U.S. and Israeli strikes were likely a violation of international law. He notes the United Nations and allies weren't notified. But Mark Carney says the Iranian regime is far worse, noting their long history of repression, the recent killing of thousands of Iranians, calling them the biggest threat to global peace. And so the Prime Minister says it's with regret that the Canadian government has decided to back those initial U.S. and Israeli strikes.
That is not a blank check. That is not us participating. That is not us asking for something in exchange for that.
Carney says Canada is now calling for a negotiated solution. At a think tank event later that day, the Prime Minister called the expansion of the conflict to other countries predictable. He said he welcomes regime change in Iran, but it brings with it a question about the durability of what comes next, adding, you can't just order up regime change, and we're seeing that play out. Carney was also asked to weigh in on his game plan for dealing broadly with Donald Trump. He says in private, Trump appreciates people being direct.
He is more interested in your viewpoint on various things in private, and that creates an ability to work through things. But, it's not easy, to be clear. It's not easy.
Some critics, including within the Liberal Party, have criticized Carney for supporting Trump's initial attacks in Iran, saying the Prime Minister should have called him out for violating international law. Carney says his response is a case of dealing with the world as it is, rather than how we wish it would be. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Sydney.